Larry Fink has become arguably the biggest advocate for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And there are people out there who are still bearish. I think this guy is going to continue on his roadshow and continue to send Bitcoin to new all-time highs. We've got all of his comments, but more importantly, it gives us a nice segue into talking about Bitcoin, all of the building that's happening on Bitcoin right now and why that's happening in this moment. And when I want to talk about things like that, of course, I bring on Yago to do it. So we're going to have that chat first. Then, of course, Dan, the chart guys on the back end. And today we got a brand new sponsor, Lumerin, to tell you guys about. A lot going on here. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of Wall Street. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the little bell so that you know when we're coming on to talk to you guys every single day. Really quick, before I bring on Yago, just want to give a quick overview of what's happening in the market. Bitcoin effectively, literally exactly flat on the day, 0%. So trading at $70,782 at the moment. If you zoom out and think, holy crap, it's March and Bitcoin's trading at $70,782, I think that should give you some perspective on where you're at the market. I literally can't understand being massively bearish at a time like this. Ethereum down 1%, and then quite a few coins still running. Dogecoin making a huge move, up 40 to 41% right now. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Yago. I want to ask him a question about that. I have a new premise. Maybe I've shared it with you. But I said that people are asking, why don't we have like all this mainstream interest and people flooding in? Bitcoin's at new all-time highs. That should have been the moment that everybody came in. And my new theory is that happens when Doge hits a new all-time high, because that's the shit that everybody's underwater on.
I think we're just super early. We've never seen sort of massive public attention. You know, if you try to model this on the basis of the last 3 cycles, it's roughly 6 months after the halving that things start to get heated, and then you basically got 18 months of run from the halving. We haven't even hit the halving yet. So yeah, and actually meme coins tend to do very well in the early stages. I started looking at it. Meme coins do very well in bear markets because they are a really cool use case for gambling. And gamblers, they're gonna hit the roulette wheel all year round. What I think is interesting to most of us, right? And that's really a gamble. Like Doge is up, Doge is down, Shiba this, Shiba that, right? But what's really interesting is when the floodgates open and all boats start to rise and some of the boats start to skyrocket. I don't think we've hit that yet.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And like I said, I think that will track the largest meme, but I guess we will see. So listen, to get us started, I just want to, we got Larry Fink will send Bitcoin to a new all-time high as the title. I got a quick clip of him yesterday that I want to show you. And then this will sort of kick us off on everything Bitcoin we're talking about here, what he thinks. So here we go.
Bullish on the long-term viability of Bitcoin.
I was going to say, did that surprise you?
That surprised me how much that's gone up. I mean, look, it is. We're creating now a market that has more liquidity, more transparency, and I'm pleasantly surprised, and I would never have predicted it before we filed it, that we were going to see this type of retail demand.
So you thought you'd do good, but not this good.
I thought. Yes.
Well, IBID is your ETF over at iShares.
Yes.
It's about to overtake Grayscale, which was in the business certainly a lot longer. You look at the gains since January 11th when it first came about.
Yes.
Have you ever seen this much inflow this quickly into
IBID is the fastest growing ETF in the history of ETFs.
I mean, what does that tell you? People, you know, I mean, literally, I'm looking at a screener right now. IBIT is now at a $17 billion market cap, and GBTC is down to 24, and that's with Bitcoin price going up massively. So GBTC obviously has seen a lot more outflow than the 26 to 24. Yeah. But I mean, I'm even surprised at how successful these have been, but we have the world's most powerful man cheerleading.
Well, I'm not surprised that they're surprised. So, first of all, I think if there's one thing we know about Bitcoin and crypto is that nothing is ever priced in. It's if you're paying attention, it in many ways becomes sort of like the easiest market to make money in. A lot of people are sort of trading this and that, but basically you come in early, round about now, and if you do choose it, like you're not going to hold for years and years, that you do want to sell, the time to sell is around 12 to 18 months from now. And that's pretty easy. What I've been saying is that because nothing is priced in, right? The ETF wasn't priced in. The people who launched the ETFs didn't realize how big they were going to get. What's going to happen is we are going to shock the traditional financial world because the level of volatility, the speed of increase, the over exuberance, and the overall volatility, both up and down, that Bitcoin is going to deliver is going to be out of the sort of bounds of reason and experience for Wall Street traders. So a lot of people have been saying the ETF is going to dull Bitcoin's volatility, and I think it will on the margin, but Bitcoin's volatility is so significant in comparison to other sort of more traditional financial assets that even if you scrape off 10% of it, it's still going to blow everyone out of the water.
Yeah, my feeling is that people don't realize how big of degenerates TradFi traders are. When you get the big hedge funds in here and the really big money, those guys are just the same meme coin traders we have on the biggest scale you've ever seen. And once they get a hold of this asset class, especially down beyond Bitcoin, I think it's going to increase the volatility.
I'll make a prediction. I think we're going to see a mid-size hedge fund. There's a good likelihood we'll see a mid-size hedge fund blow up over the course of this cycle, shorting Bitcoin.
Yeah, the Melvin Capital of
Exactly.
GameStop. It's going to be our moment. So listen, I want to segue into all the things that are being built on Bitcoin. You've been building on Bitcoin for multiple cycles here. You've always believed that we would see, effective layer twos and DeFi and all of these things. Well, Larry Fink's building that too, but he's doing it on Ethereum, right? BlackRock's tokenized fund quickly rakes in 245 million, right behind Franklin Templeton's older offering. He's been talking about this endlessly. He named it BUIDL, like build, and it's already attracted a ton of money. And this is effectively just a yield bearing, synthetic dollar. And then, like I said, we have over $1 billion now in US Treasury notes tokenized on public blockchains, over 300 million. That is Franklin Templeton, also one of the largest institutions in the world. I know it's your belief that all of this should be or could be built on Bitcoin, but does what's happening here with BlackRock on Ethereum and Franklin Templeton, is that just an inevitable sort of harbinger of what's coming?
No, I mean, maybe one day, but this isn't going to go anywhere. For the last 10 years, we've been seeing bank announces this, PayPal announces that. They come into the market, they make a lot of noise, and then they leave because the business model that they have, what is the advantage of trade for institutions, right? What is the advantage of trading treasury assets on Ethereum? There's no real advantage. There's a lot of disadvantages, but they're already set up with their brokers. They're already set up with their clearing houses. That's where they are going to funnel that money. It's the new money for the new economy that they will funnel into things like the Bitcoin ETF or directly into crypto investments. But sort of recreating the old financial space, this is in the box thinking, right? Some guy at BlackRock, a VP was told, look, you have to do something on Ethereum. We need a proof of concept. Here's $300 million. Go do something. And they did. And it's going to go exactly nowhere.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, eventually all of finance will be run on blockchains. But this is at best a press release.
Okay, so it's all being built on Bitcoin now. You guys are building it. So talk about all the things that are being built on Bitcoin right now and why you believe, maybe not this month, this year, that the financial system will all become tokenized and will become, largely on Bitcoin instead of ETH and the others.
Well, yeah. So I think this game is being played on two levels, right? There's the sort of Bitcoin game, which has the ETF. Everyone knows about the ETF. That is a massive driver pushing energy and liquidity into the system. But at the same time, possibly even bigger news has happened this year and is happening this year to Bitcoin that most people haven't noticed. I'll get to that in a second. Maybe worthwhile talking about how we got here, right? Right now, we're in an environment where there are hundreds of blockchains. And, you've got big ones like Ethereum and Solana and BSC, and you've got, I don't know, hundreds of small ones. And now you've also got rollups. But people talk about Bitcoin, people talk about blockchain in general as the internet of money. Now, I'll remind you that when the internet launched, there were 1 million competitors to the internet. There were all kinds of other networks, and a whole bunch of companies set up intranets, and right, all of that eventually disappeared. And the reason it happened was because early on, the internet was just the internet. It was really simple, and nobody knew how to build additional layers on top of it. And that is exactly what we've seen with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, we've seen it launched. It's still the biggest by far, still the best known by far, still the most secure by far, but very, very limited in terms of what it can do. You can use it to move your Bitcoin around, which, is just a single use case. So what's happened over the last 3 years has been sort of ramping up to a really big change. And I think we're now at the inflection point where, sort of in the same way that the internet swallowed all of the other networks, Bitcoin is going to swallow all of the other chains. And the reason this happens is because 3 years ago, there was a major upgrade to Bitcoin, which was Taproot. But it was a complicated piece of technology, which allowed you to do things with Bitcoin, basically create sort of Merkle trees inside of Bitcoin transactions. What does that even mean? Even the developers didn't know. Now, over the last 2 years,
some of them are regretting that they're finding out right now, but yes, go ahead.
Exactly. But over the last 3 years, they knew it was powerful, but it was kind of like a power stone, right, from the Avengers. Like, people know it's powerful, but they don't know exactly what it can do, and it takes time to figure out how to use it. So a lot of developers have over the last 3 years been figuring out how to use it. And we saw the first big example of this in March. What happened in March was that a developer by the name of Casey realized that he could use Taproot transactions to create NFTs written directly to Bitcoin. And then that exploded. Because it was on Bitcoin, it became the largest, almost overnight, it became the largest NFT market in the world, right? Overtaking
Capacity.
Solana, overtaking
Capacity
Ethereum.
at the time. Yep.
Then someone else figured out, by the name of Domo, a developer by the name of Domo figured out that he could take these NFTs, chop them up into little pieces, and turn them into like fungible tokens. Horrible technology.
BRC20.
Really, really bad hack. But even with that bad hack, it was enough innovation for Bitcoin. And because it wasn't on Bitcoin, the tinder was there, and it became one of the biggest meme coin markets in the world. Then in December, a different developer, Robin Linus, wrote a paper, and he said, holy shit, guys, what I've just discovered is that you can build an entire Turing complete. You can basically build a full computer inside of Bitcoin using Taproot. He called this BitVM, for Bitcoin Virtual Machine. And this set the world on fire, right? There are now, in just 3 or 4 months, they've come out 50 different projects that are working on bringing rollups to Bitcoin. And why is this so interesting? Because rollups on Bitcoin mean that Bitcoin gets infinite scale, and Bitcoin gets infinite possibilities, and developers don't need to ask permission from anyone. We actually don't need any more upgrades to Bitcoin. And while all of this is happening, because that's going to take a few months to roll out, but while all of this is happening, there's sort of like the early seeds of this happening now. So on the halving, a new token standard, in my opinion, and I think most people's opinion, far superior, right? Sort of like the ERC20 of Bitcoin is coming out. It's called Runes, and it's going to come out on the day of the halving. And I think there's so much anticipation for the block that it comes out that Bitcoin block is likely to be reorged by the miners. Everyone fighting over who gets those first sort of Rune tokens. And then yesterday, another project called Bob, who are building a rollup, which is a merged rollup between Ethereum and Bitcoin, announced the launch of their Spice program. And so people who are going to Bob, and I think you can find it on gobob.xyz, on Bob can actually start earning sort of Bob points that they're calling Spice.
Boy, people are so
right
upset
now.
about points, but yes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then today, Sovereign announced, which is sovryn.com. Sovereign announced that that they're actually going to be adding extra points onto this Bob thing. Plus, they're going to be introducing Rune tokens. So what's happening in Bitcoin is a level of technical innovation and degeneracy, and they're coming together in the same way that what it really reminds me of is 2015 Ethereum, which, if anyone was around at that time, that was the time of super excitement, super innovation, and millionaires just being minted.
Yeah, I was trying to bring it up here, but now my internet is freezing as usual. I don't know if you can see me, but I wrote like actually a really long newsletter on this Monday because I had never dug into all of it as deeply. It just happens to attributes, ordinals, and runes. Oh my. But I don't think people realize that even when the difficulty adjusts, those first sats in each difficulty can sell for $100,000 or more.
Yeah, it's crazy what's happening right now.
Yeah. So
and it's crazy how people don't know. I was at an institutional investors crypto conference in London a week ago, I think it was. Like hundreds and hundreds of. It's one of the the Digital Asset Summit, one of the most important sort of investor focused crypto conferences. And I was talking to people, and this is like supposed to be their thing, and they just don't know. Like everyone is 6 months behind. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so as you said, I wrote about runes as well, but the value of that first having Satoshi and what happens there is going to blow people's mind. There's going to be one of those things where they're like at auction, $69 million Beeple.
Yeah. I don't think we're at a 69 million Beeple level yet.
I don't mean that much, but that will be the story of the huge Bitcoin sort of like NFT attribute top. But to your point, this is going to effectively allow, and there's a lot of controversy about it, because BRC20, you just kind of split up these ordinals and they sold them and it was fun and it was meme tokens. With runes, we're going to see exactly what we saw with all the launches on Ethereum, which is that teams will be able to basically keep or allocate themselves a percentage of the launch. So this is really ICOs coming to
I think
Bitcoin.
I think that's exactly the point, right? So we're going to see Bitcoin, in my opinion, what's going to happen this year. And I think this is basically going to be the central narrative. It's not real world assets. It's not, decentralized infrastructure, deepen. Nobody even knows what that is. Try to explain it to a normie, but tell a normie, Bitcoin just got all of the capabilities of everything else, and you can build everything on it, and you can do ICOs on it. That is a very, very easy story to tell, but it's also important because this is basically the reboot, right? The reset of the entire crypto space. Everything that's been happening outside of Bitcoin can now happen on Bitcoin. And so I think we're going to see this reamalgamation. And this year is the beginning of that. I think that is going to be the major narrative. And it's just going to take people a little bit of time to catch up. But with runes launching on the halving, that story is going to start becoming more and more apparent to more and more people.
So is this cycle thing, or we see the innovation this cycle, we see the early iterations of experimentation, and then a few years down the road, we really start to see some sort of meaningful adoption of it?
I don't know what you mean by meaningful adoption. So there's different kinds of adoption. We're going to see significant adoption this year. I mean, tens of billions, hundreds of billions in value moving into Bitcoin layers would be my guess. Does that mean this is the year where people, like ordinary people, start making payments in Bitcoin? Absolutely not. I think that's way in the future. So yeah, I think we're going to see massive adoption. I think what we're going to see is like apps from Solana and Ethereum migrating to Bitcoin. I think we're going to see massive flows of funds. We're going to see a speed run of what we saw in Ethereum 2016, 2017 happen on Bitcoin, but just faster and bigger. But it's not exactly the same, right? You were asking, like, is this a long-term process? And I think yes. I think I would, like, if you draw a timeline of crypto over the last 13 years, it's orange, 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 orange. But then people want to start doing stuff that they can't do on Bitcoin. So it becomes sort of like this rainbow color of all kinds of projects. And I think now it's starting to turn orange again. And if you look further into the future, it's just going to become more and more orange until you just get another orange streak. And I don't think Ethereum is disappearing. I don't think Solana is disappearing, certainly not overnight. But it's going to be much more difficult to explain why anyone needs them when you can do it all in Bitcoin.
So then do we see Larry Fink say, I don't need to do this over here. I'm going to go back to Bitcoin where we have a more solid layer, massive volume, massive liquidity, all the AUM in the world. And yeah.
Nice callback to the beginning, Scott. Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. When this stuff becomes real, it's going to happen on Bitcoin. When real financial institutions start building real stuff that they use in their day-to-day business, it's not going to happen on Ripple. It's not going to happen on Ethereum. It's not going to happen on, Avalanche. It's going to happen on Bitcoin. And that's because it's the most secure chain. It's because it's the best understood chain. It's because it's the most easily accepted chain by regulators. And because it's the only asset which has become sort of part of the sovereign wealth funds of nation states. There's just no comparison in that respect. And so when it happens, which is not this cycle, but probably next, it happens on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it'll happen in all of those places simultaneously, but I think that Bitcoin has the greatest chance to capture the bulk of that value down the road. You talk about sovereign wealth funds. We had El Salvador. They've done exceptionally well. Obviously, quietly, a number of other countries, Bahrain, I think, Ethiopia, others are mining, right? And that is effectively adding Bitcoin to their central bank. Yeah, Bhutan.
I've been mining for like 3 years.
Right, and Qatar. That's who I meant. And Qatar, visiting El Salvador to talk about this. I mean, do you think we're about to see some announcements of more at different levels, varying levels, but nation state adoption and sovereign wealth?
I don't know. I don't have insider information in that. My guess is yes, just because everything gets crazy 6 months, 8 months from now. And I think, what you want to try and do is you want to try and figure out which parts are going to get crazy 8 months from now and get in now. But I would guess yes, but I don't have any concrete information.
Yeah. And when are you building your sovereign nation? So where's the update?
Well, we're as a community, we're the sovereigns are building all the time. Actually, it might be worthwhile either figuring out a way to do sort of these updates more frequently, or maybe I could try and prepare something for your channel.
Let's do that. We've added new content to the channel that doesn't necessarily have me. And our last podcast was one of my most popular ever, as they tend to be. What would that look like? You can give us like a full update on everything being built on Bitcoin, but more importantly, you could tell us what's complete trash.
I can try and separate the wheat from the chaff, separate the sound money from the degen money, and the scams from the rest. And I can try and give the insider's view and sort of like some, an explanation of what's actually happening from a technical perspective, but also like insider alpha to the extent that I have it.
There are so many things being built on Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest story not yet being told. I got so bullish when I went to the Digital Asset Summit because people weren't talking about it. Like I live and breathe this, and so I assumed everyone knew. The fact that people don't know this means that the opportunity is much larger than I realized, because everything that we're seeing now, and this is like 50 new projects announced over the last few weeks, tens of millions in funding, all of this is happening before anyone's noticed.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, where can everybody follow you, follow up on what's being built? Well, we're going to get you on the channel, but I'm assuming that in the description we have your X, Twitter. That's the best place.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter.
Guys, what's happening on Bitcoin? I can only tell you because I see it in the background. I'm telling you 99% of it, like we saw with ETH or any, is going to go be complete trash. There's a ton of cash grabs, but at a fundamental level, we're going to see all of this come to fruition.
Hell yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, Yago. One of my favorites, as always breaks it down well. And now we're going to get you on the channel then, for sure.
All right,
Done.
Scott.
Now you have
Thanks
to
for
do
having
it,
me.
though. Now that you, now that we mentioned it, I can't be embarrassed here publicly. So we're going to do something. It's going to happen.
All right,
All
cool.
right, man. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Amazing. Always love having Yago on the channel, and would love to have him as a regular contributor. And if you've been listening to our conversations for years, he's been talking about this stuff long before it happened. And I guess Bitcoin is just opening the doors and giving the capability to actually build all the things that he's and others have been talking about for so long. Guys, I need to introduce you, obviously, to a brand new sponsor here. Now, I'm going to bring up the website because I was supposed to, and my internet is tripping. But Lumerin, we're going to go ahead once I get this up. Awesome. This guy. So listen, you may remember I've had many times on the show, Jeff Garzik and Matthew Rozak from Block, both like some of the most accomplished VCs in crypto, some of the most accomplished builders. Matthew is one of my absolute favorite guests. Well, Matthew's partner, Ryan, is behind Lumerin, and Matthew is also behind this as well. This is an incredible marriage now of effectively AI, decentralization. They're bringing everything into a decentralized marketplace. I'll just read you exactly what it's incredible. So Lumerin enables data streams to be rerouted, transacted, and controlled on-chain through smart contracts. What's that mean? Essentially, data streams refer to the continuous flow of data transmitted from one node of a network to another. Although the term may seem odd, we constantly interact with them all the time. For example, a security camera that's recording what happens at your doorstep. It's continuously streaming data, video images, timestamp, alerts to whatever device and software you use to monitor it. Other examples of data streams include Bitcoin mining hash rate and AI compute power. Think about that. This means that through Lumerin, you could acquire these data streams and mine Bitcoin or run an AI agent directly from your Web3 wallet in a completely decentralized, secure, and private manner. In fact, the Lumerin Hash Power Marketplace is already live. I'm showing that to you here. You can literally buy hash power decentralized, and you can effectively become a miner on your own without having access to the machines. And you'll be able to do this with literally everything, including AI compute, AI agents. If you want to start talking about decentralization and the importance of it, this is one of those incredible projects. We'll get into Morpheus, which they're doing as well, that is going to do that. And this is coming from the most brilliant minds in the space, guys. There's no affiliate link, no nothing. Just check them out. And if you're interested in actually using it, you can launch the app and try it yourself. But really incredible, right down in the description. Amazing, guys. So that's what we got there. And now it's time to actually take a look at this market, which I haven't done to any great degree this morning. Seems like everything was choppy. I've got Dan, the chart guys. How's it going, man? I'm going to just bring up your screen, but what are we looking at today?
We'll start longer term, then we'll zoom in. And so obviously the weekly time frame looks great. Definitely looks like a textbook bull flag at this point. One thing that I want to point out as we were getting towards the end of March here, on the monthly time frame, if you look back at the last 4 times in the last 6 years that we've had periods of what I call stair steps, which is just a higher low every single candle. And anytime we had that where it was 5 or more monthly candles, when you break that pattern, the smallest pullback was about 30 to 40%. And the other ones are obviously a lot more massive. So we were coming, we're in one of those periods right now. We've got now 6 months in a row. And, 5 days ago, we were near, there was a big upper wick and we were near the low of that candle. I was like, man, I hope we don't close near this low at the end of March, because I don't want to see that pattern break. And now obviously we are looking good here as we are making our way back up to test the recent high. So really it's, it's a daily bull flag inside a weekly bull flag. And just wanted to point that out. If you're looking bigger picture, just keep an eye on that monthly stair step pattern.
Yeah, I just realized we're back over 71,000 right now. That also kind of looks potentially cup and handle-ish.
Yeah, it definitely can.
If you're gonna have a correction, you want it to look beautifully rounded like that.
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, just no huge flushes, just nice and orderly. And yeah, I would agree that you can call this a cup and handle. The right side is lower than the left. It's a bull flag. And I always love when you have a mama pattern and a baby pattern inside it, and it's the same thing. And that's what we have going on right now. So bulls trying to head into, keeping in mind we don't have trading tomorrow with the holiday in the US. So bulls got a long weekend to try and keep this momentum going. But, no concerns whatsoever. Bulls have full control.
Yeah, totally agree. And what's a 17% correction for Bitcoin anyways? It's just like a Tuesday, right? So we were screaming correction because everybody needs something to talk about, but nothing fundamentally changed really, even on the dip, in my opinion. It never even, I think, attacked levels that people would have expected in a normal dip.
Yeah, just very healthy. And, one thing that's also worth noting is this has been with the dollar going up. The last 2 weeks, the dollar has been up, not today necessarily, but if we can set, I'm watching this long-term dollar equilibrium. I think I talked about it last week, but if we can set this weekly lower high, then, Bitcoin bulls are positioned even better. It's the kind of thing, it's both gold and Bitcoin right now are going up disregarding what the dollar is doing. And so both of them are positioned really well if the dollar can set this weekly lower high. So that's something I'm going to be watching pretty closely into next week. It's kind of it's not hurting Bitcoin. It can only help. So that's a good spot to be in.
Been crazy to see everything kind of up together. Like you said, the dollar's been up, stocks still performing relatively well. Bitcoin, it corrected, but still, sitting right under the all-time high and generally up. Even gold, up. What world are we living in? It's like the Stranger Things upside down where it's all just up.
Yeah, for now, but
it won't last.
For even micro caps, the Russell 2000 here is currently, as we speak, just hit 2-year plus highs, and it's it had a little cup and handle like pattern as well, and it's trying to break out. And so I'm watching now in the bigger picture. Are we seeing some rotation out of semiconductors into small caps? Generally, the pattern has been over the last year or so. The semiconductors and big tech leads, then they cool off a little bit and the laggards play catch up. And we haven't gotten a huge IWM breakout. It's kind of like IWM starts to get going and then the whole market pulls back a little bit. So I'm keeping that in mind. But again, the fact that IWM is at these levels right now is definitely a good thing. It's my gauge of, the stock market saying risk on and willing to throw money around. We certainly know crypto's been that way for a while, but every time IWM sees another leg up, that stands out to me is, just continued confidence as long as that keeps up.
My gosh, look at that thing. And I remember not so long ago, we were talking about being at the bottom of the range. And if the micro caps break down, what a harbinger it was for blah, 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 nothing but up for everything.
Yeah, just keep it simple. Weekly EMA 12. If that is holding, the bulls have absolute complete control. We've just held it the last 3 periods of consolidation. And, when I'm swing trading, if I'm in a position I don't really want to be monitoring, that's often a guide that I will use and just say, I'm holding it as long as that EMA is support. When we lose it, I can exit the whole thing or partial or whatever, but I don't need to act if weekly EMA 12 is support. And that's a good uptrend guide for the bigger picture.
Totally. I just want to remind people when we talk about the dollar, we're talking about the DXY, which is an index of the dollar performing against another basket of currencies. So people get very confused. Like, how can the dollar be going up if we have inflation and we're debasing the currency and all those things? Because it's the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry, the prettiest pig in the pen, whatever you want to call it. You guys, we've been reporting on the fact, but like Switzerland cut rates, right? And Paraguay cut rates, and Mexico cut rates, and Brazil cutting rates. So when you have, the Swiss franc is considered, basically a flight to safety currency. When you have them cutting and sort of debasing their own currency, the dollar is going to go up relative to it. So that's how you can get these situations where the dollar DXY is rising. That doesn't mean the dollar itself. DXY is rising and other things are continuing to go up. There are exogenous factors beyond just one go up, one go down every single time. It's not that inversely correlated.
Yeah, good distinction. For me, honestly, it's, if DXY is really strong, it's time to consider, some international travel perhaps, because your dollar goes a lot further than if it's weak. And yeah, it's just all comparative to everything else.
I was in Japan like 3 weeks ago. I felt at least 3% richer than I would have. So what do you got? What else you got?
Cannabis still. So essentially quick fundamental update. If we get to April 1st with no word from the Florida Supreme Court, then we're going to get a recreational vote on the Florida ballot in November, which is a big deal, huge population. Their tourism numbers, 140, 30 million, whatever it is a year, just insane. I was very surprised by that size, but that's a potential short-term catalyst. We're still waiting on the DEA. This is a CGC name. And, we have Canadian cannabis stocks and US cannabis stocks, and they're two different things. And, this is a chart that reminds people of a crypto cycle, but it's way worse. This was a 99% pullback from euphoria due to dilution. You got the euphoria cycle like cannabis or like crypto is used to, but add on, companies issuing stocks, just absolutely crushed. But there's still opportunity, because when you have a chart that is all bears, it's the easiest short in the world. Then you get a squeeze of 400%. And then it's a bear chart where it's the easiest short in the world. And now you get a squeeze that's 200%. And so it's just, one of the traders, I've just been trading this, day trading the last, 2 weeks, just massive volatility in both directions. But as far as, the fundamental side of things, we're still focusing on the US names. MSOS is creeping up towards its 52-week high. So again, just really well positioned. If we get the headline from the DEA, we keep getting these little drops that it's coming, it's soon, maybe. But it's nice to see that things are holding up and performing well, even without the concrete headline. We're just patiently waiting.
Two things. Florida is just like California was before they changed their law. Like now everybody has a medicinal marijuana license in Florida. You just go to one of those places and tell the doctor you can't sleep or whatever, and they give you your license. So that's a roadmap every single time, right? You get the medicinal approval, then it becomes even less strict on that, and then you get the recreational. So I do think it's going to happen. But also, what you just showed me reminds me so much of the Doge Bitcoin chart back in the day. And this was before it went parabolic with Elon Musk and exited the cycle. But this was the greatest asset to trade that there ever was. You had to pump, exactly like you said. You'd squeeze it, come down. You were trading this against Bitcoin. So it was in sats, right? It would come back to like 20, 15 sats and just keep doing it every couple of months. It was the most fun thing to trade in history. It just really made me think of it when you saw the chart. Then, of course, you come over here and we broke that cycle entirely when it went here. But some of these assets are just built for traders.
Yeah, just long-term patterns. And, if nothing else for technical analysis, it's just identifying some of those patterns. I haven't traded. CGC is the most profitable stock that I've ever traded in my life, only as a bull. You look at this chart and that tells you that I'm good at not holding bags. But it's just the kind of thing where it's like I didn't trade, CGC for months and just said, I know I can look back and see that when it gets going, it creates short squeezes. I had a pattern of just bear flag. When we break the lower highs, pay attention. And then it's just, not being surprised. I didn't nail the bottom. I didn't go all in. I'm not really aggressive, but
How dare you?
Just able to capitalize on the opportunity, just looking back at previous patterns to not be surprised by certain price action.
Yeah, absolutely. I see someone saying you don't need a doctor in California. It's not like that anymore. That was my point. It used to be like that. You needed a real doctor. Then you just went on like Venice Beach and went into a little dark room and they were like, we're the doctor. We'll give you a card. And, and then eventually they changed the law. I'd say that was the evolution.
Some of these companies in Florida have a pretty significant moat just in terms of brand recognition. And they already have a ton of, locations. And so they're just ready to hit the ground running when you would expect an easy 2 to 3x in these companies' market caps if you're increasing their target market by thousands of %. So it's pretty exciting.
There are weed shops all over my hometown in Florida. I live in a small hometown here, but yeah, you can't go in unless you have a pass, unless you have the medicinal marijuana license. It was actually crazy when they were starting to do the medicinal legalization in Florida. Just a random story, but they were doing regional licenses and only one grower could get a license in each place. And they had these crazy criteria for who could do that. So you had to be like 25 years owning a nursery and some kind of thing. So it wasn't going to be anyone new. And you know, it was by geographic area. I think there were 6 of them in the state of Florida or something. And actually, so it's this insane process. My friend I grew up with, her dad had owned a nursery, literally like small trees and flowers and stuff. And he got the contract in our area. But then all that due diligence, all that getting qualified, he sold it to a Canadian company. Like 3 months later, never grew anything and retired on like tens of millions of dollars.
Wow, that is smart. Yeah, they're trying to reward the local businesses, but hey, if you can.
And they all flipped them to like weed conglomerates, which I guess the state didn't see coming when they gave these licenses. It's crazy business. Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah.
Any other charts? Is that all we got today?
That's all we got today. I just put out a Twitter poll, and 91% of my Twitter audience is either crypto or cannabis, and so this is clearly, you know, where the attention is at. And there's a bit of an inverse relationship. There's you know, I've been noticing it for a long time, but the past 3 months it's really standing out. Where, you know, red Bitcoin day, green cannabis, and just it's been pretty consistent. So I've been keeping an eye on that as well.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much, as always, for the insight. I'm assuming I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Have a good one, Scott.
Guys, follow Chart Guys, of course, on X and his YouTube channel. And I love your little videos you've been doing. So they're great.
Appreciate it.
Especially when you're barefoot in the woods. Really like those. It's a good vibe. All right, guys. That's it. Thank you, Dan. Great show as usual. I love having Yago on always. And Dan always gives us the quick hits, and he always has really, really great ideas. Check out Lumerin. And guys, if Larry, listen, I don't love Larry Fink, but I love that Larry Fink is helping to legitimize Bitcoin. And obviously, I mean, he's helping pump our bags. Also, guys, be nice to each other in the chat. Trolls are funny. They're bitter. I mean, you know, and I engaged a little bit today. You got a guy who's calling himself "I told you so," and he's saying his life is better than 90% other people, and he can prove it. Take it easy on the guy. He's not a happy person. I think you guys know that. And I know that because he's downstairs in my basement. He's my son. I'll talk to you guys later. See you next time. Bye.
Let's go.